And I'm fairly certain that that was like 3 to 4 years ago. That was changed in
So
Arizona.
recent.
Recently, until recently, that included the act of breastfeeding, and I think there's some connection there with like disempowering women to feed their children in public, like make them hide, make them not be seen in public. Basically, I think is some of the like interest behind this. I intended to have all of the like
Okay, so-
statutes and the punishments
Yeah.
on my computer, but I can't seem to find the link right now. So it's
So the state
we're
hates
just gonna,
human flesh.
so we're just going to jump ahead to the next crime that's listed is sex in public.
oh,
which,
yeah. Can't
so
do that.
so if you're like doing it in a park all by just you and your partner are like getting frisky, or say in a movie theater and you want to like fool around a bit. The law specifically talks about hand jobs, blow jobs, any sort of sexual contact, and it's like a fairly substantial crime. I want to say like third-degree misdemeanor to have any sort of sexual contact in public, and that actually gets both the indecent exposure and the sexual acts in public. If there's a chance that there is someone 15 years old who is capable of seeing that, the crime you're charged with is 4 steps higher. So instead of being like the lowest class of misdemeanor, it becomes the almost worst class of misdemeanor. And sex in public goes from the second lowest to the highest class of misdemeanor, the worst, with the most penalties. So we definitely need to protect people that are 16 years old from knowing anything about sex, because what would happen if people knew what would happen if our children knew what sex was?
Our society would descend into lawless, blood-drenched anarchy, and I'm pretty sure everybody in the world would only be having sex all the time. That's what would happen. Is that what you want?
I'm okay with having sex all the time,
Oh.
personally.
No, I guess that works, actually.
Yeah. Sex all the time isn't that bad of an idea for
All right,
me.
change message. It's you'll go to hell.
Oh, right. That's literally the only justification they have.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make some arguments about like protecting the child, but really what you're protecting them from is what you believe will send them to hell, or what your parents believed will send them to hell, and your parents left out the hell part and just told you they need to be protected. Like, it's all religious dogma. Like it's really a rare thing for children. I mean, anthropologically, as far as like all of the societies I've ever looked at, ever read about, ever heard about, every ethnography I've ever read, and shit, go to France and watch TV. Like, that's my answer. Like, go to any European country and watch TV. You're gonna see a lot of boobs. You're gonna see a lot of people having like real, like fairly visual sex.
All right, so that's it for the late night law review. I am out of here.
Yeah. Have a nice trip.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's totally ridiculous. It's a very American thing, and it's a very nonsensical thing.
Yeah,
To
that's
like
crazy.
to believe that like sex is this crazy thing that our kids can never know about, when in fact it is the most natural thing, the thing through which your children were created.
Right, and then you know your kids go to high school or college or whatever, and then don't know anything about sex. They don't know how they're supposed to behave during sex. They don't know how to protect themselves during sex. They don't know anything about it.
And that ties in sort of jumping here a bit, but also inversely, if you go to any European country or most any society, has somewhat of a restriction on the violence you can show children. In Europe, shooting guns is a big deal on TV, whereas showing boobs is not.
Right.
And so we have these like conflated feelings as Americans. Like as children, we're grown up like shown all these images of violence and like dominant men and like the big hero guy coming in and getting what he wants, and we know nothing about sex. We're absolutely not allowed to talk about it or think about it or explore it in any way as children naturally do. And so there's all this guilt already built in with it, and so when you do it, it sort of gets, I think, that is a large part of why 10% of 21-year-olds have committed some sort of sexual
14
assault.
to 21, yeah. Yeah, and the violence thing is a good point. Last story tonight from the elementary school, but I was working with a 5-year-old at one point, and he comes up to me and shows me his new Dark Knight coloring book. This was 2008.
Dark Knight, yeah.
And what was funny was that the Dark Knight coloring book marketed for kids was very tame and very not, violent. But the kid had seen the movie. Like, his parents
Obviously.
took him to see the film.
Yeah.
And I was like, your parents took you to see what now? That's no problem. It's no problem at all.
Yeah, you're 5, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, torture or whatever, it's all good.
Torture, blood, guts, horror. I don't know. It's, either it speaks to to the state's failure to successfully manage our priorities, I guess, or our failure to do that. You know what I mean? Like, culturally, I'm speaking here.
Right.
Or it speaks to the fact that we want to raise violent people to fly our war machines.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know where those two sort of separate, where we sort of as a society, well, I would say our grandparents as a society decided to be all about war and to be not so much about taking care of each other.
Greatest
And
generation.
Yeah, the quote-unquote greatest generation. Are all about taking care of, like, having the biggest military, to be the biggest dog in the world, so that we can be the alpha, whatever. Because that's
And
more
the Omega.
that's more important than, like, I don't know, teaching young people how to interact well with each other, or
Yeah.
or alleviating poverty,
How to
or
avoid
providing
AIDS.
health care. Like, these sorts of things are providing health care for everyone. Fuck that, but we got to have the biggest military.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a chicken and egg situation there. Like, is it because the people in power prefer having a really fucked up psychotic group of people in regards to sex who really know a lot about violence, thus making a bunch of violent assholes who are sexually
aren't getting
frustrated, who are, I mean,
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
or
Who aren't experiencing sex as an experience that was meant to be experienced, in other words. But, I mean, personally, my suspicion is this. I think that the people in charge of the United States government are under the metaphorical impression that the rest of the world has placed electrodes on our giant throbbing cock. And,
and we need to show
they're constantly measuring it, man.
we need to show how big it is.
They are constantly measuring it, and we need to prove to them, get their figures straight. That's a big dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, on that note, you're listening to KJack, the Late Night Law Review on KJack Radio, AM 1680, also kjack.org.
And soundtap.com/KJack, and of course download the SoundTap app for your mobile device. What's funny is that, I think if any show, despite all the swearing we've done and all the controversial topics we've covered on the show, I would think if we were going to get kicked off the air, it'd be this one. For all the reasons we just mentioned.
Right? So I was hoping to get a little more sort of in-depth into what we were talking about last week with basically legal self-defense, like, or defending yourself against the cops. How to say that, like, the art of war against the police state sort of ideas.
Sure. Am I being detained? I think it should be the name of the segment.
That should be the name of the segment, actually. That's a great idea. Although we're going to have to sort of expand that fairly soon. But in the meantime, a little musical segue.
There you go.
Glad to see you out.
I appreciate it. Let me try to be something.
Man, you messed up this time. They want to give you the max. What the hell happened, man? What the hell happened, man?
Yeah.
Just trap nigga, dead ass.
Try not to.
Alright, Said we got bowls in the living room, white on the stove. A couple dimes of beans, no rice for the dough. Got a house full of straps and niggas running patrol. Got one on the porch, got one at the door. We got kids in the back room and about 3 or 4. If mama ain't here, we sent the bitch to the stove. We need a band for the green, and razor blades for the blow, and rubber band for the money, oh, and tissue and soap. Okay. Trap house jumping off the hinges for the dope. When the nigga on the porch is on the phone. So he ain't catch the Nas pulling up like he was pole. But we can send the word, they already in the dough. Boys pick king house running the back doors, trying to flush a whole sack of salt down the commode. And handy niggas ain't even old enough to vote. Let me speak to my lawyer. Yeah, let me speak to my lawyer.
Sure. And then probably music.
Yeah, let me speak to my lawyer. Let me speak to my lawyer. Let me speak to my lawyer. Backseat of the squad car, get rid all the shit I'm being charged for. It's just shut a nigga down like garage doors. They found enough firepower to start a small war. We can't blame society, it's all our fault. This is when niggas start snitching and cut their time off. They keep searching the house and finding more and more. They taking the good kids away, we can't do nothing for. They busting walls open, cutting up sofas and mattresses, just to find out what all the cash is hid. I don't know shit about shit, so don't act me shit. We knew the rich, yet we still couldn't imagine this. Every nigga in the house pumping packages, and now we all getting charged like batteries. You think I'm giving niggas up? It ain't happening. Be grateful I even let you niggas capture niggas. Speak to my lawyer. Yeah, let me speak to my lawyer. Yeah, let me speak to my lawyer. Let me speak to my lawyer. Let me speak to my lawyer.
All right, yeah, that's another part that will probably have to be added to the to the title of the "How to Defend Yourself Against the Pigs" section. Is,
Okay.
Let me speak to my lawyer.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a fun quote. I don't know shit about shit, so don't ask me shit. We'll get into that, but just sort of recap of what happened last time. Am I being detained? It's the first thing you say to a cop when the pig wants to fuck with you.
That's right.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily apply, say, if you're pulled over. Obviously, you're being detained. If they turn on their lights and tell you to pull over, that means you're being detained. You can jump past the "am I being detained"
Because they'll say yes.
into "what the fuck, pig." No, don't tell the cops
No?
that. No,
Oh,
don't
okay.
don't say "what the fuck, pig."
Now I'm confused because that was my next go-to line.
Yeah, no. If you're being detained, things you can expect from being detained. Before I give you advice on like what to do in scenarios, I want you to know just sort of larger ideas of what's likely to happen. One of the first things going to happen is they're going to probably ask you for some ID. In which case, if they're giving you a ticket, you're required to provide state-issued identification.
Okay.
If you aren't being given a ticket, you're required to identify yourself, which means give your name, address, date of birth. That is required. If a cop asks you your name and date of birth, you cannot say, "Go fuck yourself." You can't even say, "I'm not going to tell you." You can't say, "I'm going to remain silent." Any of those things, if they ask you to identify yourself and you don't do it,
Yeah.
they can put you in handcuffs and take you in, not just until they can identify you, but also for refusing to follow a lawful order, which is like a lowest degree misdemeanor, but still
Yeah.
could be some time in jail, most likely some sort of fine,
All right.
and a conviction on your record potentially.
Sure.
So the pigs are going to ask you for ID, and you're probably going to have to show it to them. Historically, I've only really been arrested at protests, and since SB 1070 came into effect in 2010, I've been explicitly refusing to have ID at protest actions. And I explained to them that I don't bring ID to protests specifically as a protest against SB 1070 because it's immoral and unjustified. The
Yeah.
law is fucked up, and as an act of protest, I don't carry ID. But then I go on to identify myself as is required by law.
Okay.
I don't advise doing that. I've actually gotten fucked by a judge for doing that. But that's kind of the only situation I can think of where not providing ID will really work out for you.
Got it.
So after ID, so if they're just being dicks and they want to fuck with you, they're probably going to either search your car or pat you down. If you're wandering, if you're like walking around and they harass you on foot or on bicycle, they're gonna say, I need to pat you down to make sure you don't have any weapons. They might not say that if they feel particularly empowered or particularly in a bad mood that day.
I was pulled over on a bicycle, and the cop asked me if I had any weapons, and I'm going like, what in my in my sock? What do you want? I'm on a bike. I don't have anything on me. I'm just wearing biking clothes. Do I have any weapons?
See what they do with the at that point, the asking you about weapons gives them a legal justification to feel you up, like to grab your pockets and sort of guess what's in them, and so if they grab your pockets and they're like, that feels kind of like a pot pipe, they can say, okay, so I stopped you because you looked suspicious, but now that I'm standing close to you, I smell marijuana, and they can't use the fact that they felt it when they patted you down. That's not justification. They aren't looking for evidence. They're looking to protect themselves from weapons. But once they've already got once they know the evidence exists, they can make up whatever bullshit they want to get that evidence to become a legal seizure.
Mm-hmm.
So they can say, I smell marijuana, just give me whatever you have. That is where you have to start being clever. You have to start thinking about shit, because the cops are going to fucking lie to you. Every time, no doubt about it. Their job is to lie and get you to testify against yourself or against your friends. Like, their job is to convince people to admit to doing things or to snitch on other people. Their
Or
job,
to beat the shit out of black people.
beat the shit out of lots of people.
Yeah.
And so ultimately what happens is the cops are lying to you, telling you, I smell marijuana, I can take you in right now, just give it to me. And the only answer I can think of, like the only one that makes sense in this situation, is there to either I do not consent to any search. That's particularly valuable if you're in an automobile. The cops, the Supreme Court, during one of their like really fucked up sort of activism things that they did, I want to say in the mid-'80s, was to say that the cops are within their rights, if they suspect you did something, to search any place that you can physically reach. So if you're in your car, they want to search your car, because if you have anything, and I mean, what's the percentage of people that smoke weed in this country? I think it's like 50%. Like, chances are, if they search
something like that,
if they search 100 cars, they're going to have a crime that they can write up on their report on all the crimes they stopped.
right?
Like, regardless of anything else, if they stop 100 cars and search them,
Yeah, they gotta meet their quota.
they'll get 10 more lines on their quota.
Yeah.
So they're going to do whatever they can to search your car. You have to stop them, but don't try to stop them. Don't prevent
Wait,
them. Don't
you
get in
have
their
to
way.
stop them.
The
But
only
don't try
way
to
to
stop
stop them from feeling entitled to search your car, to search your person, is to say, I do not consent to any search. I do not consent to this search. I do not consent to a search.
Now, if they decide to do it anyway, you let them. Is what I hear you saying.
You can't physically prevent them. All you can do is say over and over again, as loud as you can, I do not consent to this search. That's like a sort of a legal sort of magic phrase that when they hear that, it sort of like triggers a little sort of warning sign that you might possibly be and or have a lawyer. If you're refusing to consent to a search, if you're using that specific language, you have some legal protections. So the cops are going to say, no, I need to search your car. And you're going to say, I am not going to consent. No, I need to search your car. I am not going to consent. No, see, if you don't consent, if I don't search your car now, I'm going to have to bring some dogs. I do not consent. But you don't want to be here forever. Come on, you got places to go. I got places to go.
I do not consent.
But if you don't consent, you're making things worse on yourself. I can take you in for longer. This is going to be a big hassle. Don't make this hard on me, because I'll make it hard on you.
I do not consent.
And eventually, either they bring in some drug dogs, and there's some question in my mind whether drug dogs are actually as able to detect drugs as the claim.
Okay.
They are also able to respond to very subtle signals that they should act up and start going crazy, regardless of whether there are drugs there or not. But so they can either bring out some dogs. They can conceivably search the passenger compartment of your car, any place where you can physically reach. If they find anything there, they can probably use that in court. Not definitely, but probably. So if you said, I do not consent to this search, and then they get you out of the car and they find a joint in your ashtray, they can probably use that against you, but not definitely.
You might get lucky and get the judge who's like, hey, you didn't consent to the search.
And you didn't give enough reason to search.
Right.
The cop then has to make up an excuse sort of after the fact for why they wanted to do the search. What crime they thought they could prove you had committed by searching the car. They have to say what crime you committed and what evidence they thought they were going to find before searching the car. But they make up that excuse after searching the car. So it's in their favor, but technically you might have an out. You might be okay if you do not consent to the search.
Noted.
I don't know shit about shit, so don't ask me shit.
Yep.
Is basically the gist of it. At that point, once they're fucking with you, once you're in handcuffs, once you know some shit's going down, immediately refuse to say anything.
Except, of course,
I do not consent to this search.
and
I do not consent to this search.
yeah.
And thanks to this summer's Supreme Court case, Salinas versus Texas, you have to say, I am going to remain silent.
Right. And of course, let me speak to my lawyer.
and then let me speak to my lawyer. But definitely start with, I'm going to remain silent, and fucking remain silent. They're going to pressure you, they're going to lie to you, they're going to be assholes. They're going to really fucking try to make you do what they are supposed to do. They're going to do everything they can to convince you to give them the evidence to put you in jail. That's their job, is to get you to give them the evidence. And it's your job as a responsible adult who doesn't agree that the state has the authority to fuck with whoever they want. It is your responsibility to refuse to give them the evidence that they want. Under
Right.
any circumstances, don't testify against anyone. Don't make statements against your friends. Don't say where you were going or why. Say, I'm going to remain silent.
I do not consent to the search.
I do not consent to this search.
And I think it would be awesome if they made some kind of TV show where some man or woman got pulled over, and the cop tried to search him, and the driver said, I do not consent to this search, and the cop reels back oh god, he's hit by the magic spell that won't let him search. But how did you know that? You're a lawyer? Are you do you know a lawyer? Are you friends with a lawyer? And the driver says, nope. I listen to the Late Night Law Review. Drives off.
And on that note, it is now 11 p.m.
Yep.
So it's been loads of fun. Next week, hopefully we can get a little more into sort of some strategies, some techniques for remaining silent, and a little recap of am I being
stitches?
Yeah, that might work.
Yeah.
And also, oh wait a minute, next week is homecoming week.
Uh-oh.
which means the wonderful tradition of Tequila Sunrise, where every kid on campus goes downtown at 7 a.m. to get shit-faced before class.
That's right.
And so we thought we would do a special Tequila Sunrise homecoming issue of the show.
Episode.
Episode, whatever. Specifically about alcohol, the laws about alcohol, and how to keep yourself safe while you're out there having a good time. And on that note, have a good time out there.
Next
See
week
ya.
Next week is Booze Week. We'll be back next Tuesday at 10 here on KJack.